Arguably, 2014 is the year when Samsung's smartphones changed direction, with the A range and the Galaxy Note 4 pointing the way. Though it's the new S6 and the S6 Edge here in its black 64GB version that really show where Samsung is heading, into premium territory in terms of design and materials, taking understandable cues from Apple and the iPhone, but in the process making a number of compromises. One is the price, obviously, with these new double glass and metal Galaxy flagships coming in up to £100 over, where their plastic frame predecessors would have, or make that £200 in the case of the curved glass Edge here. Second is flexibility, with batteries now being sealed, storage being absolute with no micro SD support. And third is durability, no waterproofing, no plastic rim and back to take the knocks, etc. But I don't want to be a curmudgeon. I've proved myself with devices like the iPhone, like some of my Nokia Lumias, on the Nexus 6 and others, that sealed everything isn't a showstopper these days. And price is a moot point, since almost every real-world buyer of the S6 range will be getting the phone on contract or upgrade, at which point the upfront cost gets heavily disguised by the carriers. However, I do have one thing against the S6 Edge here. It's the ultimate smartphone, but it could have been better. I think Samsung missed a trick. You see, the S6 Edge feels imbalanced in the hand in terms of front and back faces. You'll remember that when I put the S6 Edge at number 2 in my recent Phone Show Top 5, it was with the huge caveat that the Edge was housed in the rather lovely Samsung official case. Cased, it feels more balanced, but you do lose the point of the glass back, of course. You see, the front is drop dead gorgeous and feels great too, with those curved screen edges that just fall away. Then there's a thin metal rim and then nothing. The back is far less ambitious and essentially flat, leaving your fingers unimpressed. What I'd like to have seen was a polycarbonate back profiled like the front, but in reverse, if you see what I mean. Yes, the S6 Edge would then have been around 2mm thicker, but it would have felt so much more comfortable in the hand, and there would have been room for a much bigger battery, something which is potentially an issue here. And the camera glass wouldn't have had to stick out so obviously. All copyright Litchfield Design Studios 2015, obviously. Anyway, the S6 Edge is what it is, an expensive Android flagship running 5.0, but with the usual Samsung TouchWiz skin, albeit tweaked and streamlined in this 2015 version. Less Samsung own brand services, thankfully. A flipboard clone off to the left of the home screens by default, though you can uncheck this and never see it, and the usual TouchWiz tweaks for the app folder and notification shade. One surprise, to me at least, was that the usual ... menus had been replaced by the plain English words, more, edit and other appropriate words throughout the interface. This is my first experience of Samsung TouchWiz on Lollipop out of the box, and I'm guessing it's the new way of doing it. And it's rather cute, and certainly easier for new users. Slightly hidden away in settings, but making a huge difference in 2015 TouchWiz is a theme system. Now, these were a feature of both feature phones and Symbian smartphones a decade ago, but they do seem to be making a comeback on Android. Just pick a theme, most of which are in an online Samsung store and free, and bang, your icon set, wallpaper, UI elements, and even sounds are all customized. And don't worry, the default theme is only ever a tap away, so you can experiment to your heart's desire. As you'd expect, an octa-core chipset and 3GB of RAM make short work of anything in the Android world, and I didn't see any hold-ups in the UI. There have been a few rumblings in the Android world about Samsung, Google, Lollipop and management of RAM, and I did notice that even with all updates applied, Android 5 kept closing running apps down in order to keep 1GB of RAM free. What is this nanny state attitude? Why can't users use all the RAM supplied? Roll on Android 5.1 point something anyway. The overall experience is pretty good, though the QHD screen is complete overkill on a 5.1-inch display, working out to over 575 pixels per inch. I challenge anyone to notice the difference at a typical 40cm handheld distance between this and the lower tech 1080p panel, even allowing for Samsung compensating for that fact that their AMOLED screens are pentile. There is no need for QHD. As a data point, I recruited my 15-year-old daughter, who has the eyes of an eagle. Holding out the app drawers of the Samsung old Galaxy S4 and the new S6 Edge at the same brightness and distance, I asked which screen was crisper. Without hesitation, she picked the old S4. all of which means that you're paying more for those 4 million display pixels and using more processor power to drive them around, which in turn pulls in more battery, and so on. Now, a QHD on the 6-inch screen to Nexus 6 is another matter. Most people can just about tell the difference from 1080p, but not on this. Not on the 5.1 and 5.2 inch S6 range. I'm sorry, Samsung, it's engineering for engineering's sake. Happily, the same engineers also came up with a rather terrific camera for the S6. It's Samsung's best ever. It's a development of the superb camera in the Note 4 that I loved. With good OIS, a 1/2.6 inch sensor, f/1.9 optics and phase detection autofocus, allied to a very fast chipset and top-notch image processing, and you have just about the best camera phone in the world. Almost. The LG G4 exists, you see. But don't worry about the difference, since the S6 and S6 Edge run the G4 very, very close, and for most smartphone buyers, this will be the best camera they've ever had on board. See some of these samples as proof. Simply stunning photos in all light conditions. Well, except for my party tests, where there's the usual blurry mess. Why the flipping heck can't we have cameras this good and a proper flash? Not a single weedy LED. Why? Samsung even proved it could do Xenon Flash in its K-Zoom last year. Gah. Helpfully, Samsung has tied a double press of the home button to launch the camera. This is as fast as long pressing a dedicated shutter button on another device, for example, the Sony Xperias or Nokia Lumias, and uses the same principle in that it works even with the screen locked. Very fast and convenient when in a hurry. Video is likewise excellent with superb use of OIS, though like LG with G4, Samsung hasn't included a facility to grab 8 megapixel stills from 4K video, rather foiling one of the core points about shooting in 4K in the first place. Maybe the frame grab function, which does exist on the Note 4, simply hasn't been adapted yet and will come for the S6 range in an update. Media playback is also great, as you'd expect, with a single iPhone-esque bottom-mounted speaker grill pumping out a decent volume, though not without any real tone or finesse. A little disappointing, given the premium components elsewhere. Here's a demo. This is full volume. Bit of Clapton and Winwood with the classic Little Wing. I could listen to this all day. Okay, so there's no replaceable battery here, and 2600 milliamp hours, that's a full 200 smaller than the S5, is barely sufficient if you use the S6 and S6 Edge a lot during the day without any top-ups. As with the G4 recently reviewed, brightness has to be kept under control if you want to make it to bedtime. Or, and this is Samsung's argument, use the built-in Qi and PMA wireless charging to top it up regularly on your desk, or use the supplied high current charger to give it more dramatic top-ups when convenient. I'm going to give Samsung a pass for another reason too. The usual power saving modes, right down to ultra power saving here. Take the interface down to dark monochrome with minimal apps and functions. As an example, with 25% battery left, ultra power saving mode kept my S6 Edge here going for basic mail and telephony for another full 2 24-hour days. So these phones will get you home somehow. There are some hardware innovations, at least in Samsung's world, for the S6 range though. After the usability disaster that was the S5's swipe fingerprint sensing home button, the S6 copies the recent iPhones in having a static sensor, and it works much better. I still had to enter my backup password a couple of times a day for no apparent reason, and you still can't use it to authorise purchases in the Google Play Store iPhone style, but it's all going to happen. I'm sure it'll improve. Plus, having not mentioned this screen edge as much so far, there are some nice little extras or novelties, depending on your point of view. The much publicised glow per contact when someone calls and your S6 Edge is face down. It's there, it works, but who on earth keeps their phone face down on any surface? Yes, there's Gorilla Glass 4, but who likes taking that sort of unnecessary risk? More useful is a night and evening implementation of an always-on glance screen. I can't really see why this couldn't just take over the whole screen and be standard on all Samsung AMOLED screen phones, but still, you get a small clock and date up on your chosen edge, permanently on, even if not plugged into mains power. Potentially useful at night, and you can configure which hours it operates, though not the full 24, annoyingly. Now, by swiping backwards on this edge at any time, a configurable set of tickers can be swiped up, including trending tweets, Yahoo News updates, and your latest Android notification. I suppose it's an innovation, but it's not very practical. If you wanted any of the above information, you just unlock your S6 Edge and then use the full screen interface, and you get what you wanted 10 times faster. Add it all up and you've got a premium smartphone, which could have been insane. Imagine a symmetrically curved polycarbonate or even leather effect, or even leather back housing a 3500 mAh battery, for example. It would have felt so much better in the hand, I suggest. As it is, you spent, say, £750 on a SIM-free 64GB Galaxy S6 Edge. Then you have to pay another £30 to get the official shell case that provides protection and thickness for a more comfortable grip. It's madness, I tell you, and I can suggest plenty of other options for that £780, not least buying a leather-backed G4, which I still haven't got, which has an even better camera, is far more flexible in terms of battery and storage, and which saves you well over £200. If this all sounds a bit negative, then I apologise. This is still quite possibly, with its regular S6 sister device, the second best all-round smartphone in the Android world right now, and it's arguably the most beautiful. So let's finish with a shot or two of the Galaxy S6 Edge doing what it does best, posing.